Back to the Untold Issue channel. My name is Ron Partain, and we are joined by the elusive or the semi-elusive Douglas V. Gibbs. Doesn't want to participate. He's been using excuses of being on road trips and being stuck in traffic. He just didn't want to participate. But
Well, we've had one-on-one here over the last couple of weeks. Come on now.
we nailed him down today. So all is well. Um, so today we are going to continue as we go through um, Article 1, Section 2. And but before we do that, we're going to I'm going to play a video clip that I know Mr. Gibbs is going to have a field day with. Let me get us back to where I had that. Where I had that. So I don't know, Doug, if you have seen this clip or not. This is from the Pat Bet David podcast. From I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was about. So I think it was either at the end of July, excuse me, at the end of June or the first part of July. So this is about approximately a month old, but I'm only going to play about 2 minutes of it. And let's see here. Let me know. Actually, I need to change the audio settings on here. I need to change the audio settings. So let me know if you guys can. Let me know if you hear it.
Requires proof of citizenship, proof of legal residence.
Can you hear that?
It was an echo.
I can't hear you, Doug.
You can't hear me?
Give me a thumbs up if you can hear that.
Residence. You have to show up in person. Then your party affiliation is checked if you're registered to a party. Then everybody who's there from the various parties approves you. Then you get a ballot. Then you go, you turn it in, bring the ballot back. They take the ballot. They put it in the box. That's how you run an election. We can't run an election in Georgia that's radically different from the election we run in Philadelphia. We've got to have them be the same across the country. And no one wants to do that. And that's a constitutional amendment. We forget the Constitution was also designed, in the 1780s? It's hardly relevant to the nation that we have today. There are many good things about it, but the Constitution is the structure of government. It didn't say the Bill of Rights. Bill of Rights are sacrosanct. Those are what make us as Americans. They're being trampled on left and right these days, and that needs to stop. But as far as the Constitution is concerned, we've got to rethink this whole structure of government for the 21st century. Once again, nobody wants to go there. But if you have the kind of upheaval that I think is coming, we may have the opportunity to do that.
Make some real changes, apparently based on that. Some people on the left will say, yeah, all this stuff you're talking about election.
All right. So was there an echo, guys?
Yeah, there was an echo.
Oh, damn it. Can you hear me, Doug?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, was the echo bad?
Yeah, I can barely understand what he was saying.
All right, let me try it again and see if it one of these days you'll think I'll figure this out. Let me know if you can hear this.
That's how you run an election. We can't run an election
Can't
in
hear it?
Georgia that is radically different
Echo.
from the election we
Were you able to hear it, but there was an echo?
Got a gist of what he was saying, but it was an echo.
run in Philadelphia. We've got to have them be the
There you go.
same across the country. And no one wants to do that. And, that's a constitutional amendment. We forget the Constitution was also designed, in the 1780s? It's hardly relevant to the nation that we have today. There are many good things about it, but the Constitution is the structure of government. Didn't say the Bill of Rights. Bill of Rights are sacrosanct. Those are what make us as Americans. They're being trampled on left and right these days, and that needs to stop. But as far as the Constitution is concerned, we've got to rethink this whole structure of government for the 21st century. Once again, nobody wants to go there. But if you have the kind of upheaval that I think is coming, we may have the opportunity to do that.
Make some real change.
Okay. Now, so you got that? There was no echo and you heard it clearly?
Yeah, that time.
Okay,
And I've
good.
seen this video before.
All right. So what is your take on that?
Just that part?
Yeah, that's what I want to focus on, because essentially what he was saying is this: that the Constitution is essentially not good enough for what we need to. What he talked about was the structure of government, and that the structure of government is no good. That it's just not valid for what we've got. I wanted to come out of my chair when I heard that.
There's two key things that he said that we need to address. One of them, it was written in the 1780s and it's hardly relevant to today's structure. And then we need to rethink the structure for the 21st century. So he is saying that different time periods necessitate a different structure of government, because somehow tyranny and liberty must change, I suppose. And as I tell people, liberty doesn't go out of style. Now, it's been a while. I can't remember when I saw this video. It was a few weeks ago. I can't remember the entire video, but I do remember that one of the things that he addresses is the Electoral College, if I remember properly, as being a part of the problem with the structure. Part of the problem with the structure, is, the makeup of the Senate and so on and so forth. And here's the thing. First of all, if we were having the problems we're having today, and it was because we're following the Constitution as it was originally intended, I would say, yeah, maybe there's an idea there. Except the problem is our problems that we're having today is not because of the Constitution. It's because we're not following the original intent. That's like, having a microwave oven and not plugging it in and then saying, why, it's not running right. I need a new microwave.
Right.
So part of the problem is he's trying to compare how it's being followed and what its original structure was. And you can't. They're not the same thing. The structure as it was originally intended is sound. It is a republic, not a democracy. I can go on and on and on. Now, if it's the Electoral College, if I'm right, and what he's talking about is being one of the problems, once again, it's not even being followed as originally was structured, first of all. Second of all, the purpose of the Electoral College and being a republic was not to follow democracy. What people like him are usually suggesting is democracy. Well, it has to be more in the hands of the people. I have no argument that the people should have a voice. I have no argument that the people should be a primary or an important voice. But when you give the people's vote the only voice, pure democracy, you run into trouble. There's an old joke, about Winston Churchill when arguing about this very topic, says the best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. And, pure democracy, all of us can agree, We say it all the time, right? And those people vote. We come across those people all the time. So there's a structure there to protect us against the bad voting, against the populated centers from controlling the country, the rural areas having a voice, things like that. We're not following that structure. So once again, the reason why I'm coming out of my chair with this guy is not because what he's saying is right or wrong, but because he obviously does not understand that we're not even following those first 7 articles.
That's right. Well, and that was exactly my point. Is like if we were actually following the form of government that the founders laid out for us, we would not be in the predicament that we are today. So,
and while it seems like a minor example, let me give you an example. Yesterday was the first day of a federal ban on incandescent light bulbs. If you look at the law and you read the law, what it says is that that incandescent light bulbs, you can own them, you can use them, but they have banned or prohibited the sale, the manufacture, and the transportation or transporting of these incandescent light bulbs. Now, of course, the first question that comes to mind as a constitutionalist is, well, where in the Constitution do they have the authority to even do that? Number 2, what unintended consequences are they going to cause by the federal government sticking its nose into the free market in that way? How I first became aware of this and realized that there are unintended consequences, for example, is at a garage door opener installed just a couple weeks ago up there at my place up north on the Oregon coast. And the guy says that he just bought 400 incandescent light bulbs to put in the garage door openers that he installs, because LED, which is we are now being required to only have, sends out a signal or a what do you call it? Some type of signal. I can't remember what he called it now, but it interferes sometimes with the signal for opening your garage door. It's a problem. How many other unintended consequences are there? There's a reason why government, 1, doesn't have the authority to get involved like that domestically. And number 2, we especially don't want the government getting involved in the free market. There needs to be choice. What if I don't want an LED light bulb?
right.
What if I don't like them? What if I, have been doing my studies and realized, hey, there's radiation coming off of those turkeys or whatever? I should have that choice. Now, the last thing I want to say about that is what I said earlier when it came to incandescent light bulbs. It's not the use of or the owning of that's unlawful. It's the manufacturing, sales, and transport. Does that language sound familiar at all, Ron?
That sounds like firearms.
Well, it also sounds like prohibition.
Yeah.
18th Amendment. Now, here's a question for you. They had enough sense to pass an amendment for alcohol. Why? Because intoxicating liquors are not listed as an authority in the Constitution. But yet they don't have enough sense to realize, hey, incandescent light bulbs are not listed in the Constitution. There needs to be an amendment. And someone will say, well, see, that shows you how out of date the Constitution is. They didn't have incandescent light bulbs. Yes, they understood that. That's why they added, ready for it, the amendment process. If it needs to be amended to have that authority, then do so. If not, don't do it. But we don't understand that. They don't understand that. Why? Because, and I know you're ready for this because you've heard me say it, they're not following the salsa recipe.
That's right. And you know what? Just for giggles, why don't you go through the salsa recipe again? Because there may be some people who are unfamiliar with the salsa recipe.
And it's a story I like to use to help people understand the importance of the original intent of the Constitution versus the way they quote unquote interpret it today. So my dad has this great salsa recipe, and and I use it and a few other people, and word got around the family. So they started asking him for this recipe. So he emailed it and sent it out around the family. And as it passed around through the family, and this cousin asked that cousin, hey, did you get the recipe? Send it to me, and so on and so forth. A couple years later, one of my cousins calls up Dad and says, "Hey, I just want to let you know your salsa recipe sucks. I don't know why everybody loves it. It really sucks." And says, "Well, what you put in it?" Immediately, Dad knew the problem was probably original intent. What you put in it? Well, as time had passed, the lime juice had changed to lemon juice. The Roma tomatoes had become regular round tomatoes, and the guy who was really confused and calling it a bad recipe also didn't understand what cilantro was. So he looked it up on the internet and it said it was Mexican parsley. So he put parsley in it. Of course it sucked. The ingredients were wrong.
Right.
How do we expect the system, the structure of government to operate properly if we're not following the original recipe? If we're putting garlic powder instead of garlic into it, for example. And so that's what it's about. And I guarantee it that when Ron first heard this, that was what came to mind.
Well, and it goes back to we don't use the Constitution as the form of government. We use the U.S. codes, and the U.S. codes are not constitutionally derived.
Well, and it's funny. I was talking to someone the other day who thought he was my constitutional equal, and we're having this conversation, and he calls it a set of guidelines. Right? No, it's not a set of guidelines. It is the law of the land. And he was, in his mind, had separated federal law and the Constitution from being different from each other, which goes back to what you're saying. They don't care what the Constitution says. What does the code say? What does U.S. code say? What does the federal government through their judges or their legislatures say, rather than what the actual law of the land says? And then when the law of the land doesn't match what you want it to say, no problem. We'll interpret it to mean what we want it to say. Or we'll just ignore a certain part of it. Pretend it doesn't exist. That's like eating a cheeseburger and hoping that your blood vessels don't notice. Fact is, it is going to notice, because when you put garbage in, what do you get?
Garbage out. Amen. Amen to that. Well, when I first heard, I pretty much agreed with everything that he said up until that point. And when he said that, it literally, I wanted to come through the screen and just choke him, because I was like, no, we are not following the Constitution. How could you say the Constitution is not working when we're not even following it?
And unfortunately, his opinion is a common one among quote unquote scholars.
Mm-hmm.
The people who have all the the credentialism going on, all those alphabet after the name and all that. And don't get me wrong, for those of you who have all those credentials and all those letters and those PhDs and masters and certificates and this and that, hey, you know what? Congratulations, more power to you. That you got to work hard to get all that stuff. I'm not putting it down. However, I know an awful lot of very, very dumb, smart people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, I mentioned this in my class today. What do I mean by that? You can be intellectually trained, but politics is more than just what the book says. Critical thinking, common sense, all of that comes into it. And being willing to understand the full context, not just what's on the surface. And that's what the Constitution's about in the original intent. Getting back to that context. Why they write it that way? What was the point? And can liberty go out of style, or can a sound government suddenly be an archaic structure that doesn't work because society's changed? No different than the Bible doesn't go out of style because society has changed. Our Constitution, like the Bible, was not designed to change with the people. It was designed to change the people.
Amen to that. I think that's you know what, I think the use of the Bible in that context is probably the most spot on um, metaphor that you could have used. That's actually spot on. I don't I can't even add to it. That's just fantastic.
Well, thank you, sir.
So
I've been kind of at this
cool.
for a while. Every once in a while
Yeah.
I get asked these questions. Good to see you, chat room, by the way. I do have the Untold History channel up on my other computer so I can watch the chat room. Good to see you guys. Appreciate. Sorry we weren't here the last couple of weeks. I was on the road last week, and there were other things that came up the week prior. So things happen, but I'm excited to be back. It's good to see you. I did want to tell one story real quick. I bought a new rifle.
You did?
Yeah, I'm excited about it because it's the kind of rifle the Democrats don't want me to have.
Uh-oh.
Starts with 2 letters, has 2 numbers.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
That mean that one that looks really, really mean.
Yeah, that real scary one. And what's funny is I've been eyeing one of those over the last month. And then I told my wife, gosh, it's a want. No, I'm not necessarily financially. We're not really, we'd have to put it on a credit card. We can't just buy it. So, maybe I can wait. And she says, well, Doug, pray about it. Now, when I pray, I usually pray for other people. I know you can pray for yourself. You ought to, but I pray for other people typically. It's just the way I'm wired. I don't believe that God is a genie in a bottle. Today, God, my wish is, I don't believe that that's the way to do it either. And I typically don't ask him to show me signs, although he does show you signs, but I'm not that kind of prayer. But, I said pray for it, pray about it. So I prayed about it. And I basically told the Lord, hey, I'm looking at this AR-15 and, I'm considering and, I don't know, Lord. Virginia said, pray about it. Let me know. Next day, I'm at the gun shop, a different gun shop than the one I had seen it at. And this is the type of gun shop where his guns and ammo is there because somebody died usually and it got sold to him by the wife who didn't know what to do with the stuff, that kind of thing. And so I go in there and buy some ammo, and there's this lady at the counter. She leaves, and my wife brings up what I'm looking into buying. And he says, oh, well, it's funny you should bring that up. That's what that woman was dropping off. Her husband's. It's never been fired. It's brand new, still in the box. Opens up the box. There's like half a dozen boxes of ammo in there. And there's a real nice case. He says, tell you what, I'll give it to you. And then he names a price that's $100 less than what I was going to get at the other place. So I turned to my wife and I said, well, I guess God wants me to have an AR-15. The following morning, I decided to shoot it for the first time. And my wife was doing some weed eating. And when I popped off the gun, she looks at the weed eater like she thought it broke because she heard the sound. And then I pop off another shot. She stops. She looks at the weed eater. Then she looks at me. Oh, it's you. So we want to try this out? So sure.
Where were you?
Oregon coast, 80-acre property. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So yeah, last time I had a friend with me up there. I say, hey man, you want to go shooting? He says, oh, is there a range nearby? And I say, yeah, my back porch. But anyway, so Virginia grabs that gun. I understand she's new to guns, even though I've been a gun owner all my life. She's always kind of scared of them, knew anything to do with them. About the time Biden was elected, she suddenly wanted to learn how to shoot. So I've taught her how to shoot a revolver, 22 caliber. She doesn't want anything to do with the 357. It's too loud, too scary. Okay, that's fine. I got the bolt action 22, got the semi-auto 22. She's shot those. She likes them. But because of the 357, I wasn't expecting her to, like the new rifle. And so she comes over, and I help her to get in her stance because she's still learning, and it was horrible. She was way off, but so be it. She fires it and she grins. Then she pops it off again and again and again. Before I know it, she's saying, hey, Doug, can I have some more ammo? And then I readjusted my thinking. No, God did not want me to have an AR-15. He wanted my wife to have an AR-15 through me. But anyway, she loves the gun. So anyway, I just thought I'd tell that story because everybody's been getting a kick out of it.
Nice.
All right. Well, where we
Very
left
nice.
off. Yeah, I thought the audience would get a kick. Congrats on your new purchase, I am told. I am now the owner of an assault weapon. And then Collinwood says, I used my assault fork on a bowl of noodles earlier. And then laugh out loud, she's hooked. Yeah, Big Ten Bubba. We have one of those ranges now too, Doug. Yeah, isn't that nice when you can just... But anyway, all right.
So where are we? We're on Article section.
In Article 1, Section 2. We went over the 3/5 clause last time we had met. So we're now talking about we were talking about the enumeration when it came to the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives, remember, is based on population. So yeah, go up a little bit more. Keep going. A little bit more. Right. Down a little bit. Where it's right after the 3/5 clause. So the tail end of the tail end of that.
3/5 of a person.
Yeah, right after that. The next one down.
Right here.
There you go. That's where we're starting. All right. So we talked about the 3/5 clause because the thing is, what they were doing is determining how are we going to figure out the representatives for the House of Representatives, for the number of representatives for the House of Representatives per state. They're coming up with the calculations and trying to figure it out. And so the 3/5 clause was a part of that. They're going to count the free people. They're going to not count the Indians not taxed, and 3/5 of the other population. Now slavery has been outlawed, and so now it's all free persons are supposed to count towards the enumeration. Persons who are not citizens are not supposed to be counted. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court doesn't know that because remember when there was a question on whether or not citizenship should be a question on the census, and they said it was unconstitutional. It's very constitutional. We need to know who's citizen, who's not. Citizens are supposed to be counted towards the enumeration for apportionment for the House of Representatives, not non-citizens. Now, here's what it says. The actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of the Congress of the United States. They assumed that would be in 1787 when they wrote that. And it says, and within every subsequent term of 10 years in such manner as they shall by law direct. They wound up holding that census in 1790, and it's been on years ending in 0 ever since. The number of representatives shall not exceed 1 for every 30,000. In other words, a population of 30,000, the most representatives they can have is 1. That does not mean that a representative can only represent 30,000. They can represent a larger number of people. It's just saying that you cannot have more than 1 representative per 30,000 is what that's saying. There is one amendment, the original, the first of the Bill of Rights. There were 12 that went out to the states. 10 of them got ratified. The very first one did not. It would have changed it to mean 1 per 30,000. We would have 11,000 members of the House of Representatives if that one had ever been ratified. I learned that number from, by the way, our good friend, the War Hamster, the other day when I was talking to him about it last Thursday. But anyway, then knowing that the states had already conducted their own censuses individually. Now remember, apportionment into the House of Representatives is going to be based on the census, so they're not going to let the states do their own censuses anymore. Not for official determination here anyway. It's going to be the federal government. But based on the states' past censuses, this is what they determined at the time that the states would have. I like going through this list because it's kind of neat to go through it so we can kind of remind ourselves which states should be or were the most populated and which states were not. So the number of representatives shall not exceed 1 for every 30,000, but each state shall have at least 1 representative, so it can't go below 1, until such enumeration shall be made. The state of New Hampshire shall be entitled to choose 3. When Vermont later on, by the way, as the 14th state joined the Union, they were entitled 3 as well. Massachusetts 8, Rhode Island and Providence Plantations 1, Connecticut 5, New York 6, New Jersey 4, Notice New York is not a huge number. Massachusetts has more than New York. New York was largely rural at the time. Still is. It's just everybody crams into New York City. New York 6, New Jersey 4, Pennsylvania 8, Delaware 1, Maryland 6, Virginia 10. Virginia was the most populated state at the time. North Carolina 5, South Carolina 5, and Georgia 3. So that was the original. FL Jack in the chat says, I liked Warhamster. You can still like him. He's not gone forever. He's not dead. He's around. It's just he's not on the air right now. But I was just talking to him today. He is doing what he can to get back on the air. So you may see he and I doing a number of things together. Thanks for asking about it. All right. I'm assuming FL stands for Florida, maybe. I don't know. Florida Jack. But anyway, so now we're talking about the House of Representatives. Section 2 is the House of Representatives. And then it says when vacancies happen in the representation from any state. In other words, when a seat in the House of Representatives is vacated for any reason, the executive authority thereof, that would be the governor, shall issue writs of election to fill such vacancies. That will be a special election. That's what writs of election are. Then it says the House of Representatives shall choose their speaker and other officers. Notice it does not say from their own membership. It just says that they can choose who their speaker is going to be and other officers. What that means is the speaker doesn't have to be a member of the House of Representatives. Remember, Matt Gaetz, at one point during the fight over who was going to get the speaker in the current House, Matt Gaetz actually nominated Donald J. Trump. Everybody says, well, he's not in the House. How can he be speaker? He could be speaker. You don't have to be a member of the House to be speaker. They can choose whoever they want. Now, that said, because you're not a voting member of the House, you cannot vote. You could not vote in any committees. But as speaker, he would have the gavel. He would lead the conversations, the debates, and definitely have also his own things to say. Would have made for an interesting, C-SPAN would have probably become one of the most popular channels on TV. Let's just say that. All right, the House of Representatives shall choose their own speaker and other officers and shall have the sole power of impeachment. Impeachment, this is interesting. So impeachment, first of all, is the power to charge, to indict. Impeachment is not removal from office. Notice the House has the power to impeach, and the Senate has the power to hold the hearing. In a sense, Florida Jack be a mediator, in a sense, yes. Getting back to if Trump was made speaker. But getting back to impeachment. Now, this is interesting. Remember the story about the two houses. We have a House of Representatives, which was voted in by the people, shorter terms. Joe off the street ran. He's idealistic. He's loud. He's brash. Then you have the U.S. Senate at the time who are appointed by the state legislatures. Each house of the state legislature got their senator. So the state house or state assembly or state house of delegates, depending on what you call it, different states call it different things, would put in place one of those senators. The state Senate would appoint the other. And so Thomas Jefferson, when he first read the Constitution, he was in France. And he says, hey, good job, guys. You did a good job. But when he got back, he had a conversation with George Washington, who had been the president of the convention, and asked him about the two houses of Congress. Why is it you guys developed Congress the way you did, with the House belonging to the people and the Senate belonging to the states, the state legislatures? And George Washington says, well, it's sort of like your cup of tea. You know, you have that hot cup of tea and you can sip it, but it's hot. It's hot on the tongue. It's sharp and hot. So what you do is you pour it in the saucer and then you sip it from the saucer. It's cooler. The hot cup of tea is the House of Representatives, the saucer is the Senate. In other words, the House of Representatives is those kind of hotheads, idealistic, boy, they're ready to pop off if they needed to because they're voted in by the people. And these senators, well, these guys, they've been around a while. They're, in a sense, it's a pseudo aristocracy. They're being appointed by the state legislatures because they've been around. They've impressed these guys. They've built a reputation. They have a long resume. And so the Senate is where cooler heads would prevail. And so now that kind of explains why the House has the authority to impeach, but it's the Senate that holds the hearings. The people, their voice, who's going to be a little bit quick and hot if something's not going right, they can charge, they can indict. They're like, hey, this guy's got to go. Here's our indictment. Then it goes to the Senate, the cooler heads, and then they're the ones that hold the hearing. Well, let's take a look at the evidence. Let's talk to the guy. Let's go over the information and then make an informed decision. Or at least that's the intent. Of course, now our U.S. Senate is not that cooler heads shall prevail version it once was. 17th Amendment changed how the senators are put into office from them being appointed by the state legislatures to them being voted in by the people, no different than the House. So really, now, instead of having two dissimilar houses that check each other and complement each other, we now have two democratically voted in houses that are very similar to each other in that respect.
Yeah. Do you know that I'm not going to like that because that's the 17th Amendment?
Mm-hmm. Well, the more people, and this is for you, audience, the more you get to know me, hopefully you'll begin to learn and realize why at the top of my constitutional wish list is the repeal of the 17th Amendment. It has caused more damage, I believe, than anything else. And what we keep trying to fix are symptoms. 17th Amendment is not a symptom; that's a cause. That's what we need to take care of.
Allow me to just give you just a brief summary of that. It would essentially be like the House of Representatives is where the people vote on the House of Representatives because that is who is representing our interests at the federal government. Well,
right.
Would you ever allow a constitutional amendment to come in and circumvent that process and make it so that only certain individuals could vote for the House of Representatives, taking away the people's right to vote for the House of Representatives? Say like people who were people who are city council people and anybody who's on a city council within a county, they are the only ones that have the ability to vote for the House of Representatives. Would you be okay with that? It completely bypasses the ability for the people to vote for their constituents, because the House of Representatives, the constituency of the House of Representatives is the people.
Right. What's kind of weird about your example is this. You're right, and it would make everybody mad. If that's so, then why is it we allow just anybody to give money to those people? Why should it be just the people who can vote for them?
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. Starting to sound like Warhamster on that one, huh?
Yeah. So essentially, that's what happened with the 17th Amendment. The 17th Amendment is when the bicameral legislature was put into place. The 17th Amendment subverted the states from having the ability to have representation at the federal government level, which is what when the Constitution was created, you had the people voting for the House of Representatives, and you had the state governments voting for their representation at the government level, and that is the Senate. Well, what happened was that the Senate was the Senate was now the Senate is now just nothing more than glorified House of Representatives.
Exactly. Well, and the thing is, when it comes to that, I have a chapter actually in my book, Repeal Democracy, about that. My latest book, Repeal Democracy, came out last December, and it's called multiple constituencies. And what I mean by that, multiple constituencies, is that the American voter, the individual, isn't the only constituency that ought to have a voice. The state legislatures, the states ought to have a voice as well. And so I go into that in the book. And when I go into that, one of the things I explain is how important it is to make sure that the two houses, not only that the states have a voice, but it also gives somebody else a voice. By giving the states a voice, the state legislatures a voice, and by it being only two per, and by them being appointed by the state legislatures, it also gave the rural areas a bigger voice. See, when you have democracy, the population centers get their people in there.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do it the way they did it with the Senate, and the way they did it, by the way, also with the state legislatures, then what happens is you get this better voice for the rural areas. The rural areas get more people in there. And this goes back to Federalist 10. Federalist 10 was written by Madison. And he basically explained, even though everybody's saying, hey, we can't have a two-party system, even though parties weren't around yet. They were talking about the factions and how there's always two factions battling. And we got to figure out a way to fix that problem with two factions. He said two factions is not a problem if you know how to deal with it. What you do is you set them against each other. You don't let one faction control everything. But here's the thing. The majority faction is going to tend to be the one that's democratically voted in, the population center. The other faction is going to be typically your agricultural or your rural faction. And they're going to look at everything a little differently. So what you do is you boost the minority voice up a little bit so that it's loud enough it can compete with that other faction. In other words, to keep one faction from controlling everything, is you set the factions against each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Senate was all about, or at least a part of it. There's a lot of things it was about. That's one of the things. The 17th Amendment took away that debate. It made it democratically voted in, so it's closer to the population centers having control. Well, the population centers have control of this house and the other house. What happens? You have no dissimilarity. You have no debate. They're just going to do whatever they want. And I don't care which side, which party is in control. You don't want one controlling everything.
Nope.
Period. That's just right. And I mean, I wouldn't even want the, who's supposed to be my allies to control everything without any type of counterbalance. So when there's no counterbalance, you can do whatever you want. And God knows what that can be.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Senate was designed to be a counterbalance to the House. We have a tyrannical belief system out there who wants them to be identical to each other. So that they have control of both, so that there's no argument against them, so they can do whatever they want.
Right.
And that is not conducive of liberty.
At all.
At all.
At all. Where are we going to next, my friend?
All right. So
you want to head back to the
Section 3, most of it we've already gone through when we were talking about the U.S. Senate last week and all of that. So let's get into, or actually a few weeks ago, last week, like 3 weeks ago, last show. So let's go to where the Vice President of the United States, we're still in Section 3, but where the Vice President of the United States is the President of the Senate. Because all the stuff, the earlier part of the Section 3 has already been covered. So it'll be the 4th paragraph down. There you go. All right, so we talked about how the legislature, the Congress, has two houses. They're different from each other. You have the people's voice in one, you have the state's voice in the other. In the people's voice, you also have the population center voice. In the other one, you have the rural areas voice. And part of the reason for that too is because the founding fathers understood that they wanted there to be multiple voices. Two heads are better than one, they say, right? Not two of the same heads. If Ron and I worked for the same company, and I'm working on a project, before I turn it in, I got to have a second opinion to make sure I didn't, forget anything. I'm not going to have another Doug come over and look at it. I'll have Ron come over. Ron will look at it, and he's like, well, look, you missed this right here. Oh, I didn't see that. Thank you for looking at it from a different point of view. Two heads are better than one.
Mm-hmm.
And also the states, because they created this federal government, wanted to have oversight over the government. So the Senate has a lot of abilities that the House might not have. For example, ratifying treaties, confirming officers and judges, and also they're the second part of the legislative process. So you have the people's voice in the legislative process in the House, and you have the state's voice in the legislative process in the Senate. But the founders decided to throw one more voice into the legislative process, the voice of the executive. The vice president of the United States shall be president of the Senate, but shall have no vote unless they be equally divided. So first of all, since you have 2 senators per state, it is possible for there to be a tie. So first of all, you have to have a tie-breaking vote. So vice president, when necessary, has that vote. Otherwise, there is no vote available from the vice president as president of the Senate. As president of the Senate, also what the vice president is doing is representing the executive branch, the voice of the federal government, so to speak, in the debate over legislation. So you really have 3 voices when it comes to the legislative process. The people in the House, the states in the Senate, and the executive branch in the name or in the voice of the vice president as president of the Senate. As president of the Senate, the vice president would operate in a manner sort of like that speaker I was talking about earlier, that's not a member of the House, if that were to happen. The vice president of the United States, as president of the Senate, wields the gavel, runs the meeting, acts in a sense as a mediator. But they don't have a choice or a vote, should I say, when it comes to normal processes. They can debate, they can mediate, they can make suggestions, and then if there's a tie, they get a vote. It's a third voice in the legislative process. The founding fathers understood you don't want a single entity, a single idea, a single ideology, a single group to have all of the power. You want to distribute that power the best you can. That's largely of what the Constitution is about, is the distribution of power. Now, this gets back to your wonderful friend on the video earlier, Ron, talking about the structure of government.
Mm-hmm.
The structure of government, no matter the times.
I will say the vast majority of what he says I agree with, but I categorically and unquestionably disagree with his statement about structure of government.
So when it comes to the structure of government works. It shouldn't have to change just because times change. No matter what the times are, 2 heads are still better than one. Having additional voices, having additional ideas, having checks and balances are always a good idea. Going to a consolidation of power into one group is always dangerous, be it the federal government, be it a particular party, be it a particular voting group. So now that all said, so the vice president of the United States shall be president of the Senate. So now here's the thing. Let me back up here. You go out there, and I bet you Slingshot will get a kick out of this one. And you ask the average person, what's the job of the vice president? Most people, your average people, or people who don't really know all of this stuff, will say, well, it's one of the meaningless jobs in the country. What do they do? Aside from maybe go to China every once in a while and say they went to the border when they didn't. I mean, aside from that, what is it the vice president does? The vice president's job as president of the Senate was a very important and active one. They're swinging the gavel at every meeting, at every session, if they're doing their job. In the last 100 years, we really haven't seen that.
Nope.
The vice presidency has become basically a meaningless job.
An absolute meaningless job.
Once again, we need to get back to the original intent. And you know, be it Harris or be it Pence or be it whoever, be involved, be active, have a voice for the executive. The states are going to have a voice in the, you know, before the 17th Amendment. We got to get rid of that. States have a voice. The executive branch has a voice. That people have a voice in the House. It's a fantastic system. We don't follow it. So getting back to your good friend, our problem is not that it's not working. It's that we're not working it. Now, the next part says the Senate shall choose their other officers. So like the House, they're choosing their own people. And also a president pro tempore. In the absence of the vice president, or when he shall exercise the office of president of the United States. In other words, there's going to be those times when the vice president can't be there. You know, in the absence of the vice president. They're assuming vice president can be there as president of the Senate, but when they're absent, that president pro tempore is the person who wields the gavel and runs the meetings. That's not necessarily the majority leader. It's whoever they choose.
Right.
The Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. We talked about that earlier because they're the cooler heads, right? They're the pseudo aristocrats, or at least prior to the 17th Amendment, where they've been in the system for a while. The state legislatures that appointed them trust them. They've got a resume. They think about these things. They're critical thinkers. They're not the hot-headed, idealistic new guys in the House. So the House can impeach, can charge, but it's up to the Senate to try the impeachments. And understand, an impeachment trial is not a criminal trial. People don't understand why such and such didn't walk out in handcuffs in an orange jumpsuit. Because it's not a criminal trial. Impeachment, and I'll get to more about this in a moment, impeachment is a political trial. Did this person violate their oath of office? Did they abuse their power? Did they commit a high crime or misdemeanor? Then they need to be removed from office. Then once they're removed, then the criminal part can be added. So the Senate shall have sole power to try all impeachments. When sitting for that purpose, they shall be on oath or affirmation. When the president of the United States is tried, the chief justice shall preside. In other words, the vice president presides over all other impeachments, judges, things like that. But if the president is being impeached, now we've got a conflict of interest. Vice president is not going to preside. It's going to be the chief justice. And no person shall be convicted without the concurrence of 2/3 of the members present. It takes 2/3 of those present, and got to have a quorum, at least a majority, in order to get someone out of office on impeachment. It's not easy.
And just for sake of understanding, what is a quorum in the House of
Representatives? Quorum
is
a majority. So in the case of the Senate, that would be 51 or more members present.
Okay, so you have to have at least 51 members present to have a quorum.
Right.
And if
and
you
then
don't,
and then of those present, 2/3 would have to vote for removal from office in order for the person to be convicted.
Right. And what's quorum in the House of Representatives?
Off the top of my head, I'm not going to do the math, but it's still a majority, whatever it is. So 50% plus one, basically, is a quorum.
Gotcha.
The word quorum means the number needed to do business. It doesn't necessarily have to be majority. Some businesses, some companies, some legislative bodies require percentages less than half, exact half, majority, 2/3, 3/4, depends on what you choose it to be. In the case of our two houses of Congress, a quorum is a majority. Judgment in cases, this is the last paragraph of Article 1, Section 3. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to the removal from office. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. This is a political trial. So the greatest punishment is removal from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office or honor, trust, or profit under the United States. But the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to law. In other words, once removed, you have a political trial. Once removed, they're out of office. Now the criminal trial, if there was crimes committed that need to be addressed, can then commence, but not while they're holding office. A president, vice president, judge cannot be held criminally until they're out of office. Then they can be charged criminally, and then that trial can commence.
And once they're out of office, they are no longer eligible to have office. Is that correct?
Right. According to this, yeah. So typically that's what happens. If someone is removed from office, typically also a part of the sentencing is, once again, disqualification to hold and enjoy any office in honor or trust under the United States. And sometimes they'll even add or under any state or local jurisdiction. That means you couldn't even be a dog catcher. So, and we've had 4 impeachments during the history of our country. Andrew Johnson, who, while impeached, remained in office by 1 vote after his hearing with the Senate. Clinton, for lying under oath while impeached, he also remained in office, was not removed from office. And then Donald J. Trump was impeached twice. First time he remained in office. The second time, the impeachment trial extended beyond his end of service as president, but he also was acquitted, was not convicted. Now, the threat of articles of impeachment, or the articles of impeachment being filed but not approved by a majority vote, have happened a number of times. The first time it happened was John Tyler. John Tyler was president after Harrison, who had been, old hickory. He had gotten sick after campaigning in the rain, basically, and lasted 41 days in office until pneumonia finally killed him. And so John Tyler became president. He was not the same ideological makeup of Harrison. The Congress didn't like him. Plus, John Tyler started doing something that Congress didn't feel was correct. See, prior to John Tyler, the only time you saw a veto by a president was on constitutional grounds. I don't believe that's constitutional. Here's what the Constitution says, therefore I'm vetoing it. But John Tyler kept vetoing bills because he politically disagreed with it, regardless of constitutionality. They weren't happy about that. And so that was their grounds for impeachment, was that he was vetoing bills for reasons other than constitutionality. However, they didn't get enough votes, so the impeachment did not occur, and it did not get sent to the Senate. They did not get enough votes to charge him.
Now, the let's finish up with this because we're right about 5:02. When the original Constitution was written, the president was not supposed to vote to pass or fail a bill based on his own personal feelings about the bill. It was supposed, his job was strictly to ascertain whether it followed the Constitution. Is that correct?
That is the unwritten attitude and belief, yes. However, it's unwritten. And therefore, John Tyler, by vetoing for reasons other than constitutionality, while not technically violating the Constitution, he did violate the understanding and agreed understanding at the time of what a veto was supposed to be about.
Okay.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I thought
that was the attitude. That was the belief. You're right.
Right.
But it wasn't written.
It wasn't
It's
written.
unwritten.
Okay. Well, that is that is probably where we're going to finish up today.
Mhm.
So
And
next,
I tried to get it so that we finish section 3. So we will begin Article 1, Section 4, which we're going to get into elections, but also one of my favorite lines in the Constitution. I won't tell you what it is till next week.
okay. Well, thank you everybody for showing up today. Apologize, I meant to get this up earlier to have it live, but I just today's just been a nuts day. But as soon as we hang this up, I'm going to be setting up the live stream for my show here at 6 o'clock Pacific time, so 9 o'clock Eastern time. And today we're going to be talking about Operation Barbarossa.
Oh,
So
fun.
that'll be an interesting topic of conversation. So yeah, I'm going through the alternative history of World War II, um, kind of World War II almost from the German perspective. Um, Not because I'm trying to um, advocate for the German side of the I'm not trying to glamorize the German side, but what I am trying to do is I'm trying to present a different perspective on World War II, because all we've ever known is what we've been taught by our history professors, which is that everything that they did was bad and everything we did was good. So
Well,
I'm trying.
well, you're doing kind of what I like to do.
Yeah,
Give the full context.
right. Exactly. It's not necessarily that I'm not trying to suggest that Hitler was a great guy and he did all this other things. Although I do think that there's a lot of things that he did that were good that he did never really got credit for,
Or that he had the right intentions, but it went wrong.
or possibly. But at the end of the day, the thing about it is that what we are taught isn't always 100% true, because as we all know, history is written by the winners. And when you look at guys
Well,
like
that's not necessarily so. History is written by the left. But anyway, go ahead.
actually, that is probably much more true than anything. But when you look at when you look at history, we've got guys like Stalin and Mao who are celebrated. Who, if you compare the things that they did compared to what Hitler did, it makes Hitler look like a choir boy, and these guys are literally celebrated in our educational system today.
Well, I
So
will
it
say
just
this. I've mentioned it to you before. There are stories of, for example, the Soviets killing Jewish populations in Poland, and then it got blamed on Germany.
right, right,
Things like that, too. So, yeah.
yeah.
There's more to the story often than meets the eye, or as I like to say, there's always 3 sides to every story: what he said, what she said, and what really happened.
Right, exactly. The truth is somewhere in the middle. So, but anyway, I'm trying to present a little bit more of the German perspective
Okay.
of what's going on, just to give people a kind of a counterbalance. Is like, I never knew that. I never understood that. I never knew that was true. So, anyway, that's just kind of where I'm going with that. So
Well,
today we're going to be talking about Operation Barbarossa. A couple weeks ago, I did uh, a book review on Barbarossa, because they had discovered all of the documentation showing that the Soviet Union had planned for an invasion of Western Europe in 1941, and that Hitler beat them to the punch by about 2 to 3 weeks. He beat them to the punch. He invaded them before they could invade him. So he caught them off guard. So, but
I
anyway,
wanted to I wanted to throw out a real quick thank you to the chat room, because I am paying attention, and there was a couple of great comments in there. Beckelnay says these shows are amazing. Appreciate that. That's your appreciation. I appreciate your appreciation. Thank you. There's a lot of folks in there that are newer names to me. A few folks
Mm-hmm.
I know, such as our gal out there in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So good to see all of you. And I wanted to thank you, Michigan Lady Patriot. I wanted to thank
Yep.
all of you because, the idea here is I believe that education leads to advocacy and advocacy leads to liberty,
Mm-hmm.
but it begins with education.
Well, the funny thing is that the more I present the alternative parts of history, the more my channel's growing.
It's almost like people want to know.
Right. It's interesting, and again, I lay I lay the foundation when I first started. It's like, look, this is not necessarily an attack on any one group of people, but it is a different perspective from what you've been taught all your lives.
Right.
So, and I think it's important for us to hear some of those things that are different from what we've been taught all our lives, because I not that what we've been taught all our lives isn't 100% true, but I think that if you listen to some of the alternate perspectives, it's like, well, that doesn't necessarily match up with what I've been told, and that actually kind of makes a little bit of sense. So anyway, I'm just trying to present alternate forms, or not necessarily alternate forms of history, but alternate perspectives, so that people can take that into consideration and then come up to a better conclusion where they can make up their own mind.
Full
And that's what I
context.
and that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So
It makes
so
it easier to make a determination on what you want to believe when you have
mhm.
all sides of the story, full context.
And
Absolutely.
guys, I don't know what's going to happen with Glitch. There's some background there's some background stuff that's going on there that you guys don't know about. So I don't know what's going to happen to there. I may come back, I may not come back. I don't know yet. I would, you know what, I would love to. That show was really my idea. And if it comes to pass that I'm able to come back on there, then great. And if it isn't, listen, I'm going to be okay, because there's a lot of stuff that I can do, that I'm really kind of finding my groove, and some of the things that I'm doing on my channel. And I'm really, really content with a lot of the things that I'm doing right now. So whatever is going to happen is going to happen. I'm not gonna force anything. And if it happens, great. And if it doesn't happen, I'm going to be okay, because I really feel like I'm doing some good stuff, on my own. So, and especially here with Douglas talking about the Constitution, and I really like the aspect of bringing in one of the things that this class has done, compared to others, is we're bringing in things that are on modern day, something that we can talk about that is highlighting where the Constitution is kind of gone off the rails, if you will, and that thing with um, Colonel McGregor. In fact, I actually know somebody who knows him, and what I would really like to do is I'd really like to organize a show where I get him on and Doug on, and then we actually have a dialogue. I think that would be a fantastic show.
I agree.
So I'm gonna see if I can't make that happen. So, but in any event, that being said, I want to wish you guys the greatest. I'm not going to be here next week because I'm going to be in St. Louis. I'm Grunt Style Foundation has asked me to participate uh, in a focus group, and I'm going to be in St. Louis a week from today. So I don't know if I may be able to do it from a hotel room, but I can't promise that. So, um, we're not going to say that I'm not going to say that it's not going to happen yet, but uh, uh, I am going to do what I can to make sure that it does happen. But for now, we're just going to be in a holding pattern. But I'm gonna do everything that I can to make sure that it does happen for next week. So
You
even
keep
if
me
I'm
posted.
traveling, so appreciate all you guys. and we didn't want to miss 2 weeks in a row, and I'd really hate to miss next week as well. So, but anyway, that said, appreciate everybody here, and look forward to seeing you again. If it's not next week, then it'll definitely be the week after. So, uh, anyway, appreciate all you guys, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in the very, very near future. So, take care, everybody.